everyone. Welcome to the Weird World Podcast. It's just the grown-ups tonight. I'm Carrie.
Hi, I'm Dean.
The other grown-up.
Thank you.
Kind of.
Well, all right. It did seem a little nice of you to say that, so I see.
Beside the fact that all of our children are actual grown-ups, but...
We'll never think of them that way, obviously.
Nope. Okay, Dean, what are we going to talk about this evening?
I am going to start not a two-part, but we're going to do back-to-back UFO stories.
Cool.
These are actually similar, but I think of them almost as kind of bookends. This first one, and you'll see why eventually, but this first one kind of very similar events, but with very different ways of looking at them, even though this first one here is actually the far more well-known and famous of the two events. Next week, we'll do something called the Michigan Lights. This week, we're going to do something a lot more famous, which is called the Phoenix Lights.
Now everybody's going to Google the Michigan Lights. And
oh, well, don't do that. Just wait until next week. So the Phoenix Lights happened in March 13th of 1997 and quickly became one of the most famous supposed UFO events in UFO lore. You don't think of Arizona as a hot spot for UFOs, but they actually have had quite a few, like per capita, I guess their UFO sightings are fairly high. One reason is probably just they have a very, there aren't so many lights in the sky, so you can see things in the sky a lot easier in vast empty deserts that Arizona has.
Well, when I thought I saw a UFO, I was, as a matter of fact, in Arizona.
What? When did you think you saw a UFO?
When I was a child.
In Arizona?
At the river.
Oh, okay. On the other, barely in Arizona, on the other side of the Colorado River.
But we saw these bright lights flashing in the distance.
Intriguing.
And we tried to get to them.
You tried to get to the bright lights?
Yeah.
Oh, like on the ground?
Yeah.
Oh, not in the sky?
No, we were little kids.
Oh, okay.
Well, they were flashing in the sky.
But
it looked like might have been coming from the ground. We don't know.
Like an airfield or something, like lights maybe or something like that?
No, it was like big flashes.
Well, how have you never told me that you saw a UFO?
Oh, I've told this story many times.
To me? I don't think so. Maybe it's your other husband.
Your
other face. Carrie has a second family, by the way.
Studious listeners could probably tell you the episode and timestamp. I've probably talked about it on the podcast. I'm sure it was it wasn't raining or anything. It was probably a lightning storm. 100 miles away or something. We could just see.
Carrie's, you'll have to tell us more about that later.
That's it. That's the entire story.
So Carrie already told us all about her UFO story. So on March 13th, 1997, Arizona became kind of the center of the UFO universe and was home to possibly the most witnessed UFO encounter in the history of UFOs. It actually started at the southern tip of Nevada, just north of Arizona. The initial sighting of what would become the Phoenix Lights event was over Henderson, over the sky of Henderson, Nevada, which is a suburb of Las Vegas. It was about 7:55 p.m. Witnesses started seeing something up in the dark sky. So it's dark. It's well after sunset. It's dark. Keep that in mind. All this event took place in a very dark night sky.
Yeah.
So 5 lights appeared above Henderson, and they formed a V-shape object. 1 light at the front and 2 behind it, kind of slanting behind it on each side of the lead light.
Sure.
The thing moved south, and about 20 minutes later, so out of sight, it's moving south. It leaves Nevada airspace, and about 20 minutes later, witnesses began to see it in northern Arizona, in the more popular initially that area right south of Nevada is very sparsely populated. Eventually, you get to areas around Prescott in northern Arizona that have a little bit of population. And about 8:15 p.m., folks start seeing the same V-shaped lit object up in the sky in northern Arizona. A police officer in a town called Paulden, it's about 200 miles southeast of Henderson. He saw the object, for example, and he described it as kind of like reddish-orange lights that slowly moved south, again, still moving south, until they sort of disappeared along a horizon. So they're moving further into Arizona, towards sort of central Arizona. And then about 25 miles south of Paulden, they were seen in a town called Prescott Valley. And again, same shape, same coloration, same formation, and again, seeming to move very slowly across the sky. Some witnesses compare the shape to a carpenter's square, which is kind of like a V shape, but one of the quote unquote wings is a little longer. I don't know why that sort of became a thing. You'll hear it said, people talk about carpenter's angle or carpenter's square. I don't know why. It's for sure, it was 5 objects. So there's 1 V and there's 2 behind it. Maybe at times, one of the trailing, the most trailing light got a little, was seeming a little bit further behind, possibly. I don't know, but it seems like a V shape.
Completely in sync.
They appear to be moving completely in shape. Almost everybody who saw it interpreted it as like essentially a triangle, like a solid mass of a large object shaped something like a triangle, or
with multiple lights.
With one in the forward and 2 slanting along the sides. So I mean, you could interpret that as kind of a V-shaped winged-like object, or you could interpret that as a solid triangle. I think people interpret it in both ways. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how the carpenter's angle ever got thrown out. Somebody threw that out there. They probably shouldn't have. Let's move on.
We know people that would have called it a carpenter's angle.
Yeah, exactly. It was, I think, someone trying to sound smart. Well, it's got a lot, probably a carpenter, I'm going to assume. It could have been Jesus. I don't know for a fact. Probably not.
That would be the bigger story.
That would be. You'd bury the lead if it was Jesus. Mm-hmm. Man says UFO looks like carpenter's angle.
He's got long hair and a beard.
Most of the witnesses, or at least many of them, said that it moved across the sky silently. It's making no noise. And again, they felt that it was pretty close to them and moving slowly. And that's pretty important for this. We'll talk about more of that later.
How do they gauge the closeness?
That's a great question.
Because if you can't hear it, I mean, when we see things moving in the sky and you can't hear them, you assume they're much further away.
Yes. But the human brain works in unusual ways, and lights in the night very often seem much closer than they are. And so people are interpreting it as being very close to them, and therefore moving slowly, and therefore its silence seems inexplicable.
Yeah. See, I would assume if I don't see an actual structure, if I only see the lights, but I guess because it's dark, right? You're not going to see it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would assume it's further away.
Yes. They're interpreting it, though, as this huge V-shaped or triangular-shaped object moving low and slow through the Arizona night sky. So then sometime around 8:30, maybe to 8:45, accounts vary, the object finally made its way over sprawling metropolitan Phoenix. The first sightings of this V-shaped 5-light object were in Glendale. That's a suburb of Phoenix to the northwest of, I guess, central Phoenix. So it's something like 15 minutes, 30 minutes. It's hard to say after being seen above the Prescott Valley, because Glendale is about 85 miles south of Phoenix. People have interpreted, okay, what does that mean? It means it appears that it was going something like 400 miles an hour, depending on how long that gap was between the folks seeing it around the Prescott area and finally it being seen in the northern reaches of the greater Phoenix.
And do you know how fast regular airplanes fly?
Something in that vicinity.
Okay.
Yeah. But aliens, spacecraft can fly any goddamn speed they want, Carrie. Cruising speed could be 400 for a UFO, too. You don't know. We don't know their policies.
I'm not arguing that.
Okay,
I was curious to see how in line that would be with regular airplanes.
Approximately. I think jet airplanes fly a little faster than that, but certainly some aircraft can fly at that speed. Again, though, multiple eyewitnesses saw these lights in the Phoenix area now. This triangular object flew along the eastern edge of the Valley of the Sun. That's Greater Phoenix is in there. There's some mountains called I think they're called the Sierra Estrella mountain range, and they form along kind of the eastern rim of this valley bowl. That appeared to be where this object flew along that area, and then it disappears. It goes away. It's gone. This was a baffling event. It was unexplainable to most people who viewed it. Many people were even terrified. They said it scared them. It kind of shook them. Think about it. They believe they just saw this silent, giant, slow-moving UFO brazenly cruise over Arizona as if they own the airspace.
Yeah.
So people were a little freaked out. If it stopped right there, that would have been, a pretty notable event and would have caused some waves. Oh, but it did not stop right there.
Oh.
Not very long later, this already amazing event became even more sensational. When around 10 p.m. that night, witnesses, first by the dozens, then by the hundreds, and eventually by the thousands, saw a new set of lights over Phoenix. These were only over Phoenix. The second set of lights, and they were kind of a string of lights to the southwest of the valley that seemed to hover and even float above the skies outside of Phoenix. So think of like these lights. I've seen the videos. There's great videos of this, by the way.
Okay, good.
That's what kind of made it famous. And there's at least 6, sometimes 7 lights. They almost look like just like a huge necklace in the night sky. And they were very bright. To most folks, this indicated some kind of a massive object, singular, with lights in a row. This object was clearly very different from that seen to the north from what, an hour plus to 2 hours earlier, because it was shaped completely differently and appeared to be much, much larger. And it wasn't even at people perceived it as going slow and slow across. This thing didn't appear to be moving at all. Eventually, it would appear to be slowly descending. But the lights are horizontal, so it's almost like think of a cylinder on its side, I guess, but with lights along in a row. Does that make sense to you?
Uh-huh.
That's kind of what it's appeared to look like to most people. At times, though, it seemed like some of the lights, especially toward the end or toward one end at least, kind of dipped a little bit lower. And so some people described it as sort of a boomerang shape, which is not quite horizontal, but pretty darn close. They're not really a V shape at all. And again, sort of on its side, not, with anything on the lead, but just sort of a horizontal line of 6 or 7 lights that were either kind of a straight line or seemed to be kind of a very slight arcing boomerang shape. Estimates of the length, and you ask, how do people estimate length in the night sky? The short answer is they do not, and they should not ever. But people estimated at anywhere from 3,000 to 6,000 feet long. So a mile long boomerang shaped object, cylindrical object.
Silly.
I mean, if this was a UFO, it was the mothership. This thing was gigantic.
It was looking for those other lights that got off track.
Probably. Or maybe they went into this mothership.
Sure.
Remember, this is roughly where they ended up. So, again, this object didn't fly like the first object did. It floated. Or at least it seemed to float. It seemed to hover in the sky. Again, it's sort of to the southwest of Phoenix. It gradually, though, almost imperceptibly sunk lower and lower and lower. Or maybe some people think, or is it just getting more distant? Is it flying off into the eastern or southern or southeastern horizon? Maybe it is. Witnessers weren't sure, but it certainly was getting lower in the sky, at least however you want to perceive that. People, I mean, this was huge. People pulled over their cars. You see video of people go, oh my God, what's happening? People on their little group, their groups of people, probably neighbors, just, in some cul-de-sac somewhere in some residential neighborhood in the foothills are just looking at it and freaking out. People are really amazed by what is happening. And then I don't know, it's funny, I can't find anything that said, okay, and they were viewed for, 7 minutes. Doesn't seem like it was that long. I looked at a lot of different YouTubes, but no one seems to have here's a video that I saw when they first came until they ended. They weren't in the sky for very long, a matter of minutes, not, tens of minutes or hours or something like that. But I don't know. I can't tell you if it was 7 minutes or 15 minutes or what have you.
So did somebody who was watching them until they disappeared report how they disappeared? Did they just go out? Did they fly away? What happened?
It disappeared over the eastern horizon. It just sort of blinked out. And one by one, the lights quickly disappeared and they were gone. So it's as if they were extinguished, or did they take off at lightning breakneck speed? No one can say for sure, but it's just sort of, they fall for a little while and then suddenly they blink out and they're gone.
Okay.
In the sky. That's key. They didn't
land
hit the ground or anything like that. They were in the sky when they disappeared.
Okay.
But it was a huge thing. Thousands of people would eventually say they saw these Phoenix lights. Many, many people had taken videos of it and also still pictures. And they were shown on the morning shows. They were shown on the evening shows later. They were splashed all over newspapers the very next day. It became a national. I mean, it was on CNN. It was on everything you can think of.
I was going to ask you, do you remember at the time?
I absolutely do.
At the time?
Yep.
Did we talk about it?
I don't know if we talked about it. We weren't doing a podcast at the time, but I for sure, I've been into this stuff for my whole life.
Yeah, that's
true. But I for sure, absolutely, I remember it. It was a big story.
Huh.
I probably saw it on CNN or something like that. It was first on the
Probably.
local Phoenix news. Like it was on I think it's made his first appearance in like the morning shows. I mean, people, at that next morning, people were talking about it. Everyone was sending their videos and people were talking about it. I don't think it had time to make it on that evening news, but it was in the next day's paper. It was in the morning news. And then it quickly sprung from Phoenix to the rest of the world immediately.
Yeah.
It was gigantic. It's like, I mean, people were saying, had a UFO just really boldly visited Arizona as if it was like announcing its presence. It was it was weird. Explanations were very hard to come by, at least at first. The Phoenix air traffic control folks were immediately contacted and they said, nope, we have no radar hits. We didn't perceive anything in the sky. So, but of course, obviously a UFO could cloak.
Obviously.
An air traffic controller who was on duty that night, his name was Bill Grava. He said the event was, quote, weird and inexplicable. And he said he had, quote, no idea what it was. Something military, I guess.
Wait.
End quote.
I thought air traffic control didn't see anything.
They didn't get radar. They absolutely saw the lights. They were like every other, everybody in Phoenix. Anybody in Phoenix looking at that night saw these lights. They were that bright. They were that prominent.
Okay. If
you were up and you looked to the southwest, you saw these lights.
So they saw them with their eyeballs, but they didn't see them on radar.
Yes.
Did they say that they should have seen them on radar?
I don't know. Not one way or the other. But again, most people again perceive these lights as like they're right there at maybe at the edge of Greater Phoenix, but they're there. They're not that far off.
Yeah.
And kind of to the south. Did I say? I might have said southwest. I should have said south and I think southeast of sort of central Phoenix. I don't know what I said earlier.
Okay.
It's not okay.
It is.
So then, of course, people start asking the military, what did you see? What did you have? Did you have something out there? And at least at the immediate time, initially, the military said, wasn't us. So they talked to a spokesperson. I guess they called Luke Air Force Base in the immediate Phoenix area, and they asked, hey, we need an explanation. So whoever the public relations person on duty came up and said, okay, what you got for me? What are you trying to say? And they described the lights, and he said, no, we got no idea what that is. We have no floating string of lights or anything up in the sky from Luke Air Force Base. So the Air Force doesn't have anything like that out in the sky. We in the Air Force don't have any planes out there right now. It wasn't us.
How close is Luke Air Force Base?
It's pretty close. It's pretty close.
So theoretically, somebody at the Air Force Base might have been looking into the sky and seen them too.
Theoretically, yeah. I don't know if this person, they got a hold and they're giving some PR flag. And the PR flag said, it wasn't us. We don't know what it was.
I'm not sure I would rely heavily on them to be telling the truth.
Ooh, some conspiracy theory vibes I'm getting here. I like it.
That's not a conspiracy theory. It's just,
It's true. If it's some kind of secret object, they're not going to say, oh, yeah, that was our secret stuff. Oh, God damn it. I knew I shouldn't have talked to these. Yeah, that'd be bad.
But then also,
be demoted.
I don't think they would be flying it over Phoenix where it's going to be seen if it's something super secret.
You're getting ahead of us, Kara.
Okay.
The governor of Arizona at the time, his name is J. Fife Symington, and he was exactly like his name sounds, like a rich douchebag.
Those kind of people don't belong in Arizona.
They don't belong in the world, okay? J. Fife Symington, he was a douchey. He was a crook. He would actually later be forced out of office for criminal conduct. He was a urine specimen. He was a member of the Air Force in his earlier days before he became a sleazy business person. And at first, he would ridicule it. He actually did a press conference. And he had his chief of staff dress up in like a cheesy Halloween alien costume, literally, and had him come walking. He goes, oh, we have the people responsible for that thing that happened a couple nights ago, and here he is. And the guy walked in the alien costume, and all the reporters laugh and chuckle. Yeah. And then he takes his mask off and is, oh, don't ask me any questions. Yeah, come in peace. It was very lame. Later, though, he would retract this and say that he knew of no U.S. craft that could explain the event. And he said he saw something very inexplicable. This later would be a decade later, after I believe he served time in prison. But later he would say, no, I was just doing that to calm people down. Yeah. And in fact, I was baffled by it as well. And I as an ex-Air Force person, couldn't explain it.
Okay, I don't know if I believe him either.
Because his name is J. Fife Symington?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good reason, by the way.
And he probably just wanted to talk to the
I'm being
press again.
100% truthful when I say that his name's a good enough reason to doubt anything he says. The UFO enthusiast first in Phoenix, and then the rest. I mean, they jumped on this thing. They pounced on this thing like cats on a meatloaf. That's an old saying. It's pretty common in my part of the world. Anyway, let's not exploit it.
I'm pretty sure you just made that up.
I just didn't. No. There was a former doctor. Her name was Lynn Cattell, and she was one of those who immediately jumped on into the action. But she wasn't alone. There was some other local UFO and some national people started really. I mean, this became a big UFO thing instantaneously.
Why is she a former doctor, and why is that important?
She was because every time you see her name, they call her Dr. Lynn Cattell, as if that gives her some kind of authority to understand what UFOs are. Because she was, I don't know what kind of doctor she was, probably a homeopath, but she was a doctor. I guess she quit medical service to research this for years and became something. And she was she already was a UFO enthusiast before this occurred. I don't know if she'd quit being a doctor before this or because of this. I don't know, but very as you see a lot, it's what's the word again? The phrase again for people who use expertise in one thing to give this veneer as if they has expertise in something else. There's a word for that.
I didn't know there was.
And I can't remember what it is. It's like credential mongering or something like that. Where you always the whole idea of calling medical doctors every time you say their name is the stupidest thing in the world. I won't do that. But every time you see her name in a caption, it says Dr. Lynn Cattell, that makes her an authority or that makes her trustworthy, which is in this case couldn't be further from the truth.
No.
She was on a Dateline episode, and more recently, she was also on History's Greatest Mysteries episode. And
her favorite shows.
Not when they do these things, they aren't. History's Greatest Mysteries is embarrassing. It's Lawrence Fishburne embarrassing himself for a paycheck, and it's on the History Channel.
Yeah,
it's bad, which is 100% fake history. So. And then she's been so many local news outlets in Phoenix. Everybody's talking to her.
Yeah,
she's just relentlessly pushes the theory that what everyone's seen on this day was an extraterrestrial craft.
Right.
She claims to have witnessed the event, which is, again, like these when things become part of this, a lot of people who never saw it say they saw it. My suspicion is she didn't see this thing, but she's a UFO proponent, and she's in Phoenix, you kind of have to say you saw it. Maybe she did, I don't know, but she would also later say that she saw, quote, intelligence, unquote, in the lights, and that because a string of 6 or 7 lights floating in the sky, you can decide whether they have or do not have intelligence. She decided they did have intelligence because they showed her that. She would later even say that she saw the object directly outside her living room window. I mean, right there, everybody else, every video, every still picture, you see it high in the sky, south of Phoenix, in the air. Not Lynn.
Yeah.
Lynn sees it right out. I was like, knock, knock, I'm here. Because Lynn, you're special to us. So more, I don't know if they're pranking her or if they really thought, we got to get a message. We got to visit Lynn now that we're here. So we're big fans of hers. So
I think we now know why she's a former doctor.
Because she's a horrible fraud. She has this obnoxious goddamn smile. I know I'm being personal now, but every time I've seen her, she has this. she almost looks like a cult member because she has one of those smiles. You know what I mean? One of those ever-present smiles. Even if she's talking about something serious, she'll have this goofy smile on her face.
What's her name again?
It's her brand, Lynn Cattell, Kittel. Anyway, so she's not trustworthy. She's full of shit, but. Still, you had this kernel remain that thousands and thousands of people had seen this massive lit object in the sky that floated over Phoenix and for at least several minutes until it finally twinkled and disappeared. It was a pretty astounding event, and it became instantaneously the big story of the day. So the media response was almost universally accepting and sensational. You can tell by the fact that and when I see Lynn Cattell on these Phoenix shows, I mean recently, which is insane. And all these shows will say the same thing, which is, the mystery remains.
Well, it's now her job.
It really, I don't know if she writes books, but I think she pretty much is a UFO person.
Her
That's
LinkedIn is CEO of something in Phoenix Lights Network.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So the Phoenix Light became her job, her ticket out of the drudgery of the medical profession into the fun and fabulous times of being a UFO fraud and doing I imagine the convention circuit. I mean, but the media knew a ratings boom when they saw it, and the newspapers did the same. So, I mean, virtually all of the reporting was just completely credulous. What was that? It must have been a UFO. No one can explain what it was. And in fairness to them, no one did have an explanation initially. The military didn't. The air traffic control did not. But they would air everything. And anybody who said, yeah, here's what I saw some of the interviews of people. One kid is going, yeah, it was so close, I could have hit it with a baseball. I'm not kidding. And I think he really did have a Southern accent, even though he's in Phoenix, which doesn't make any sense. But I'm not kidding. I could hit it with the ball. I could hit it with So, Billy, what did you say? Did you, you told your parents you can hit it with a baseball? Yeah, I could have hit it with a baseball. That's how close that thing was to me. So, and this is, by the way, was the V-shaped light, the initial thing.
Yeah.
So, really? Okay. Then you know what? Why didn't you, Billy?
Yeah.
Why didn't you? I mean, basically, no claim from any UFO proponent was too ridiculous to not air by the news. It was really pretty shameful. Again, the governor at the time, J. Fife Simonton, he put on his little press conference show with the guy in the alien costume. But again, he would later kind of come around and retract that and became something of a believer, apparently. At the time, though, there was a city councilwoman. I can't remember her name. A Phoenix city councilwoman, and she was relentless. She investigated, talked to people, went personally. Went to talk to any witness who would speak to her. She did a report for the city council. She insisted on there being some kind of an official investigation into what it was. Arizona Senator John McCain joined in this call for some kind of a government investigation to figure out what this was.
Yeah.
And they did, kind of, but they did it really in a normal procedural way. So in other words, he said, okay, they called that poor PR guy at the Air Force, but later they said, okay, seriously, what was that? Military, Air Force, etc. And it took about 4 months because the wheels of government often, especially in the Pentagon, move slowly.
Yeah.
After about 4 months after the event, the United States Air Force produced a statement. What it said is, we'll get to that in a minute. But it didn't matter. It was too late. At that point, it didn't matter. So the Air Force produces a statement and says, here's what happened. Nope. Just about everybody says, oh, bullshit.
Right.
Typical government cover up. By that time, so many people were invested in having seen a UFO that they couldn't have not seen a UFO.
Right.
So during those months, witnesses, again, they sprung up. More and more of them people claim to see days after. So, I saw it.
Yeah.
Everybody suddenly saw it.
Yeah.
And the stories began to get embellished and elaborated on. And the Phoenix lights almost instantaneously. It took a little while, but after a few months, they had gone viral and became just a huge part of UFO lore in the country.
Things didn't go viral in 1997.
They did. They just did it in a different way. 97, I don't know. They could have on AOL.com, sister.
I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure. Here's a side note. By the way, at the time of the event, a private pilot first reported the lights to the local air traffic control. He was flying in his private plane, and he saw something weird, and he called air traffic control. From what I can tell, I think it was the V-shaped first thing that this pilot saw. I'm not 100% positive. A lot of the renderings in this event, if you want to research it yourself, please do. But just know that there's a ton of, unsurprisingly, misinformation and just getting the facts wrong. And this article that I read about this private pilot, by the way, said that the floating lights hovering over Phoenix happened several hours after the V-shape. They didn't. They happened like 30 to 45 minutes after that. And it also, and we'll talk about this more in a minute as well, but they conflate the two events into one event. In fact, that is a very, very key part of this story. So anyway, this pilot was flying into Phoenix. He sees the light. He radios it in to his sighting to the air traffic control. The air traffic control says it's not a plane. We don't know what it is. It's not one of our planes. We're not tracking it, and kind of forgets about it. So
fly right into it.
It's not. It's not a dangerous thing. It's just like, hey, I see some weird lights. I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
it's like a V-shaped formation. I think it was the V-shaped thing. The years later, this pilot is, and that's not his job was on pilot. He had a license to fly.
Yeah.
This person, he's watching a documentary with his wife on the Phoenix lights, and they start talking about this unnamed private pilot who first radioed in. He goes, hey,
that's me.
I'm pretty sure that's me.
Yeah.
This person who was watching it with his wife was Goldie Hawn. this person was Kurt Russell.
Seriously?
Yes, he was flying their son Russell into Phoenix. I visited a camp or something like that. I don't know.
Their son Russell?
Russell. Oh my God. No, I must have that wrong. They were flying their son. Oliver? I don't know.
Oliver is Goldie Hawn's son. Their son together is Wyatt.
I think it was, I could have sworn it said Oliver. It was Russell, by the way, would be a phenomenal name. And I condemn them for not naming someone Russell. I think it was Oliver. I'm not positive. So he's flying Oliver into Phoenix. He sees this, and I think it's like 2017, he sees this documentary and goes, whoa, that's cool.
That's funny.
So soon, though, after...
So what did he do?
He just said, whoa.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what it was. That's cool. I'm sure the document we're watching was, all that, pretty much everything on this says, oh, it was a UFO. It's a mystery. Soon, though, the event kind of receded into the background. It was something unexplainable and unexplained to most people. It became kind of a exhibit A or at least exhibit B or C in the UFO lore for something like, you can't explain this. This happened. And, but it became well known, but kind of receded. At least for a decade, there were no more lights over Phoenix. In 2007, though, there were renewed reports about lights seen over Phoenix. And in 2008, the next year, in February of 2008, there were more reports of very mysterious lights seen over Phoenix, much like in 1997. Now, what happened in March of 1997? You're probably wondering. So however triggering this is to UFO enthusiasts, there is a, quote, official explanation for the Phoenix lights.
Okay.
I know the word official explanation is a four-letter word to you, and the word official is treated as if it's synonymous with cover-up and wrong and untruthful. It's critical to understand the event as actually two distinct events if we really want to see what happened. That's very, very important because they're, like I said a minute ago, very often portrayed as a single event, and the two events are conflated in a way that makes them much more mysterious than it ought to be. Okay. And this conflation has, whether it's done honestly or not so much, which is frequently the truth, what's happening, has been a huge part of making something that's explicable into something that's inexplicable. So let's start with the first event. The first Phoenix lights, which was the V-shaped or triangular-shaped 5-light object that was seen over southern Nevada, went across northern Arizona, and then finally over Phoenix before it disappeared. Many reported this as, again, a multi-light, single, solid, triangular-shaped object flying low and slow through the night. So let's dissect that, if any of that's actually true. Was it a single object? And was it flying low and slow? Mitch Stanley was a young man who lived in Scottsdale, Arizona. That's another Phoenix suburb. He was an astronomy enthusiast, and he had a very good telescope. It's a 10-inch Dobsonian.
Oh,
so pretty nice, right?
A good one, yeah.
You know a little about telescopes.
Of course.
I thought you might. These telescopes, they're really good. Like you think of the amateur's telescope, and sometimes you see something with your naked eye, and you try to find it in the sky. It's not easy. Yeah. This is easy. Yeah. If you see something, you're going to find it as soon as you want to. And it had a magnification of 60x, 60 times, which means that Stanley, when he was viewing those V-shaped triangular lights in the sky, he could see it 60 times closer than you with a naked eye could see. It's a lot better. Yeah. Stanley saw the 5-light object in the sky, naked eye, and then he trained his telescope on it. And he clearly saw that the 5 lights were not a solid mass. They were 5 individual objects. Okay. He also saw, again, very clearly, no doubt, that the 5 lights were airplanes. For sure. No doubt, unequivocally, prosaic, earth-bound airplanes. He literally saw 5 airplanes. Kind of a square shape in the profile, but for sure planes, no question whatsoever. Okay. They were airplanes. And he's not the only one, but he had just a phenomenal view. And they were very, very small, which told him what?
They were far away.
They're far, far away.
So did he tell anybody at the time?
He did.
Okay. But nobody listened to him.
Well, yeah. It was buried in an avalanche of nonsense. Yeah. So the planes were not flying slowly or near the viewer. No, they were very high in the sky, flying pretty darn fast. There are 5 distinct objects, all lit and all separated, not one mass.
Yeah.
So you asked a second ago, did Stanley tell the media? He absolutely told the media. He did, I think the very next day.
Yeah.
He told the media. The media listened to it. In fact, I think one local station even kind of mentioned it, maybe briefly interviewed it. But again, it was like wall-to-wall coverage.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite OJ level coverage, but it was a lot of coverage. And you had Mitch Stanley saying, I saw 5 planes. And then you had, 10 people saying, I saw it was mysterious. And remember what they're also talking about, and what became the bigger story by far was those slowly floating balls. That clearly was not 5 A-10s going 400 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I don't be misunderstood here. I'm not condemning most of the witnesses who said they saw a solid object. That is human nature. That is, we all fashion lights in the night sky into a single object. And we almost invariably think lights in the night sky are closer than they really are. It's just human perception. It's the way our eyes process information and translate it into our brain. That's what we see.
Yeah, but we should know that we're not experts.
No, but what happened is that became almost like a mob mentality. Everybody's saying, I saw this. And the initial interpretation, we've talked about this before. I think we have, or we will, or we maybe have, but when you see something in the sky now that you don't understand, almost every American, in fact, people across the globe are conditioned for their first thought to be alien aircraft. It just is. It's the nature of the beast.
Is that your first thought when you see a light in the sky?
Most people it is. It absolutely is. Carrie, we just did that not that long ago when I walked with the dogs and we saw these weird lights and we're going, what is that? You cannot tell. You went thinking,
No, I assume they're airplanes.
Yeah, but if it's they're doing something that doesn't appear very airplane-y or seems very not airplane, like they're much too big to be an airplane, or they're going too slow to be an airplane, or they're silent in airplanes you should hear if they're that close to you. If that's how you're perceiving it, you're going to think about UFOs first. Millions of us, if we see something inexplicable that we can't explain, we think UFOs, or we at least entertain the possibility.
Yeah,
for sure.
But also those dots, those lights that we saw, they were barely moving. So my assumption isn't, they're UFOs hovering in the night sky. My assumption is they're airplanes very far away.
Well, you're smarter than most people in Phoenix. Don't you feel very superior?
No,
now,
I don't. But I'm saying, not so sure that it's that high of a percentage of people.
I think it's
that
overwhelming.
Are assuming they're UFOs.
If anything, honestly, the Phoenix Lights proves my point. Almost everyone thought this was a UFO who saw it. And we've got to event 1 now, and event 1 clearly was airplanes. You're right. Most folks should have thought, okay, airplanes. Most folks who saw it thought UFO. I mean, and they'd come more to think that because that became the story.
Yeah,
that
but
became
also
the narrative.
Because of the way they were flying or something, maybe it looked a little bit different. Which ours were 2 little lights in the sky.
Yeah,
one was bigger than the other, and whatever,
distance, size, and speed are just impossible for humans to judge for things in the air. In daytime, it's impossible to judge those things
on the ground. When GPS says in 1,000 feet, turn right, I have no clue.
That's a weakness of yours. That's specific to you. She's like, now, and it's no. It's now is immediately. Please turn right in 2,000 feet. Now.
We also know that they know it's the second right. Say the second fucking right. You don't have to say.
No, Carrie. They're going to say
in 1,000 feet.
They're going to say in 1,000 feet. Please turn right at the Denny's because Denny's pays them.
No, that's like you saying go east.
Yeah, Carrie hates directions. We're seeing this is the problem with our marriage. Carrie can't do directions or distance.
The problem with our marriage is I literally was practically in tears when you were go east, go east. I said, just say left or right. The very next direction you gave me, go east.
No, I don't know. That sounds embellished.
No.
So we naturally, again, see objects closer than they really are. I'm sorry, we see them as more distant than they really are, and we see them as a single object, even if they are disparate objects. That's just it's human perception.
Sure.
So if you think something's closer to you or fairly close to you, and it's just kind of gradually going across the night sky, you have to think it's going abnormally, weirdly slow. That's right. So the people think that's too slow for an airplane. Mm-hmm. So I mean, again, the witnesses, I think, were reporting very honestly what they saw.
Yeah.
The filling in thing is also natural, as we talked about. So people, I think, were very honestly thinking a triangle, not 5 independent objects. So what were these planes? I actually said it a second ago. They were A-10s. It's called the Warthog. They were flying in their standard V formation. They were flying exactly as you'd expect them to fly. They're attack aircraft, and they were being flown as part of something called Operation Snowbird. This was a pilot training program for various Air National Guards. And they'd go to Arizona because in this case, it was the Maryland Air National Guard was doing this thing because they don't have big open spaces over Maryland.
Yeah.
You fly across it in minutes, but they do in Arizona. So they go places like Arizona and Utah and New Mexico and Nevada to train. That's exactly what this was. Again, so when the Air Force came back in 4 months and said, yeah, okay, sorry, it took us this long. And sorry, that guy on the first night of didn't know about it, didn't know the details. But this was Operation Snowbird because the reason was these were not Air Force craft. They were Air National Guard craft. They were flying out of an Air Force base, but they were not Air Force craft.
Okay. But the spokesperson for the Air Force base should have, maybe picked up the telephone and asked somebody.
Because Kevin was a dum-dum. We have this. If he would have said, oh, that's Operation Snowbird.
Yeah.
And who knows? It may have been like, oh, I don't know how secret that is or if we're supposed to talk about that right now. I don't know. He might have been thinking. You err on the side of secrecy in that job, for sure.
I think they know how secret certain things are. Also, if they're doing it over Phoenix, it's not a secret.
Yeah, that is the weird part. The planes were flying out of the Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, which is closer to Tucson. That's to kind of the east-southeast of Phoenix.
Maybe that's why the Phoenix guy didn't know about it.
That's exactly why he didn't know about
okay.
it. So he's at Luke Air Force Base, and they're flying out of a different Air Force base, and they're not Air Force craft.
But
so
also,
it's not that inexplicable that he didn't know.
You know what Air Force? You might think, oh, well, they didn't fly out of Luke. Maybe they flew out of blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Which isn't that far away.
We really should have an Air Force base called Blah 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 Air Force Base.
I can't remember what you said. Something Monson.
Davis-Monthan.
Okay.
You'd have never heard of it? It's very famous.
Davis-Monthan.
If you never heard Davis R. Monthan, have you? So the A-10s may also have been a little bit confusing to see because when you see jet lights, what do you see? When you see airplane lights, you see them blinking.
I was going to say flashing. Yeah.
They flash. Yeah. They always flash. Military craft do not flash. That's an FAA restriction or rule for civilian craft.
Military craft, a good thing to know.
For military craft, they're for sight. They're not for like collision avoidance. So they are on all the time. So you see a light on all the time. It's military craft, and this may have confused the witnesses a little more than normal.
Huh.
The formation of these planes, these Warthogs, took off sometime before 8 p.m. I'm not sure exactly when. They flew their exercise. They landed back at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base about 8:45 p.m. or so. And again, that's east of Phoenix on the other side of the Sierra Estrella Mountains from Metro Phoenix. So they went on the other side of the mountains and landed over closer to Tucson. When they flew behind the mountains, remember the mountains, what are the mountains? Pitch black at night. If mountains in the distance, what do you see?
Nothing.
You see nothing. They're invisible. Those mountains are invisible. So suddenly, those airplanes would just disappear when they went beyond the mountains from wherever you were standing. And most of Phoenix is a fairly low valley floor. So, well, I guess we talked about this. I was going to say the whole Luke Air Force Base thing is very explicable that he didn't know about this operation. And so what happens, though, is that when mistakes are made, just honest mistakes are made, you can never unmake that. You can never unsay that because that guy wasn't omniscient or didn't think to look into before he answered the question. It's now taken as that was part of a cover-up. Right. It's a sure sign of a conspiracy. It's manufacturing a mystery, but it's hard to do. The Roswell incident is famous for this. When the first thing was this stupid thing that it was the person who I can't remember his name now, but he released the press release that said flying saucer found on the sand. It was nothing of the sort. It was a weather balloon. It was a secret spy balloon, but that initial very first newspaper story has never been able to live down, even though Roswell wasn't a thing for about 4 decades. So also the square, remember I said Mitch Stanley saw these planes and they had a kind of a squarish profile. He didn't know what they were. That's an A-10. An A-10 has this weird, it's called Warthog for a reason. Yeah. It's kind of ugly. It's not a sexy, sleek plane at all. They're ugly attack craft that are very lethal. And it fits with the A-10 explanation perfectly what Mitch Stanley saw at 60 times magnification.
Okay.
Both the United States Air Force and the Maryland Air National Guard would later say, yeah, no, that was us.
Yeah.
No, we were flying our A-10s in that V formation. So, I mean, if you're trying to say this was UFOs and build a conspiracy theory, you're talking about everybody who was part of the Air National Guard from Maryland, everybody who was part of the U.S. Air Force, involved in I think it's like 3 Air Force bases in in around Phoenix in that area.
Yeah.
So and they've kept the secret for now over a quarter century.
Yeah.
You're starting to build what I've always said is that the more involved and elaborate and the more people know about your conspiracy, the less likely it is to be true.
Yeah.
Well, you've got that here in spades. There were very, very few good pictures or videos of the first event, the A-10s and flying in the V formation. But there's one decent video, and it clearly shows them moving in, at the same speed with each other, moving in the formation exactly as you'd expect to see 5 A-10s.
So they were doing a good job.
They were doing a great job. I mean, you just basically lock in and set your speed.
Yeah.
It's cruise control, I assume. I think you can flick the steering, you can tap the brake to stop the cruise control, but on an A-10, I believe, is my understanding. Or it could be voice commands. I don't know. So
this was 1997.
This was, you're right.
Not the same technology we have today.
No, our cruise control is so much better now.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have Teslas that can run into cops because they're terrible. So almost an hour later, you see this next set of lights over Phoenix, and they appear to be hovering and slowly, very, very slowly descending. This was another part of Operation Snowbird. It again involved the Maryland Air National Guard that was there today to do their training.
Yeah.
This training was a little different, though, because this sortie also flew out of the Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, and it flew over what's called Berry Goldwater Air Force Range in, is it Pima or Pima County, Arizona? I'm not sure, but it's south of Phoenix, so it's exactly where the floating lights were seen.
Uh-huh.
And their exercise was to... Any idea? Want to take a guess?
Parachuters.
Close, not bad. Sort of. Flares. On parachutes, but flares. Illumination flares, to be specific. These flares are intended to be extremely bright, and the idea is that you light up the terrain and the ground to see operations, to get an intel or just to see what's going on during the night down on the ground. They're extraordinarily bright. And they are to be used. They're essentially, they were training for if they saw some more action.
Okay.
They would release these flares in a tight formation to light up the ground beneath them.
Okay.
There's just isn't any mystery here for what this was. These were flares. I'm sorry if you don't want to believe that they were flares, but they were flares.
They came out and gave it this information 4 months after the fact?
Yes.
Why are there still documentaries being made?
That's a fantastic question. But I mean, yeah,
Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn to be watching.
The USAF eventually they explained it. It took them a little while, but they did. The Maryland Air National Guard has been very open about it.
Yeah.
The people on the mission have talked about it. Yeah, no, I did that. I dropped those flares. It's been in like I guess you have some histories about the Maryland Air National Guard, and part of the thing is like, in 1997 they did some exercises out over the Arizona, and they dropped flares, and they did A-10s. It was even reported, by the way, in July of 1997, just a few months later, in the Arizona Republic, but it just got buried again.
Yeah,
there was so much misinformation that actual information just gets lost.
Yeah, the
event. Okay, so. The string of lights, you have pattern forming here in the flare, let's call it the second event, because that's really what it is.
Yeah.
And you see these string of lights across the night sky with nothing in between. So you form a giant cylinder.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know if you probably don't, but I've looked at UFO lore again since I was a child. And you'll notice one thing. You'll notice a lot of UFOs historically have been described as quote unquote cigar shaped.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're all flares. But that's more or less, this was a long cigar, but essentially it's a long cylinder on the side. A lot of people, so I wonder how many cigar-shaped UFOs have been flares, at least in the semi-modern era. I don't know. I'm just saying. But anyway, that's the kind of perception. People again are connecting these dots, these 6 or 7 dots, which also are kind of this reddish orange. And also, by the way, I've seen the videos, and when you magnify the video and make it close, you see this kind of reddish orange, and it's almost like a pulsating. It looks like heat, because it is. And then, but if you see them from distance, they look more white, so the color kind of gets lost from the distance. I don't know if that's that. I think that's how it should work. I believe. Huh. So anyway, because of where it was, the flares were very visible to all these Phoenicians, and they are dropped by parachute. So that's important because the heat of the flares creates like a balloon effect.
Right.
So that heat, and it causes them not to rise, but to slow down and almost seem to not be falling at all, to be hovering or floating and not falling, because they virtually are, especially as they're so high up, you can't even tell that they are descending. It takes a long time to realize, they are getting lower very, very slowly, just kind of like a hot air balloon.
And that also makes
effect.
sense why some of them seem to dip.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly true. Or they're not going to go at the exact perfect speed, so some are going to be a little bit out of line, even though they're dropped at roughly about the same time, I imagine within milliseconds of each other. So these flares slowly descend over these odd Phoenix witnesses who are watching, who are taking videos, who are taking pictures, and eventually, what do? They're to the southeast. So what are they going to do? They're going to fall behind the Sierra Estrella Mountains again. And when they do, as I described, they appear to suddenly blink out and disappear.
Right.
And in the sky, above the sky, because they are. I don't know how high, but thousands of foot high peaks. So people are perceiving that, oh my God, they're still in the air and they just disappeared.
Right.
Because they fell behind the mountains that you can't see in the dark of night. So, and when the canisters of the fuel, when they run out, they actually, like a little bolt explodes and releases them. So the spent flares just fall harmlessly, hopefully, to the ground and don't hurt anybody. That's exactly what happened. So some people did report like a little flare up before they disappeared.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened, because there was a little explosion that released them so they could fall to the ground. All of the videos show this. They show exactly this. They show them slowly descending and then disappearing in a string. It's a situation where the UFO proponents think the video evidence is like, oh, case closed. This was a UFO. When in fact, the video evidence shows conclusively what they really were, which was flares.
Right.
In fact, they were LUU-2B/B flares. And I know, I just had to throw that in because I read it. And they're used to, again, illuminate ground operations. And the flares, what happens? I guess they've tested him, and they do look like this. The Air Force actually did a test later, and it did pretty much mimic what was seen.
Yeah.
So in all the things that I think are written by credible sources, they say yes, and it looked very much like what was reported. In all of the sort of pro-UFO stuff and the history's greatest mysteries, they literally report, I believe, what is the same event, which is the Air Force testing it and saying, they didn't look anything like it at all. So like, they screwed themselves by doing this test.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I haven't seen the test. I suspect it looked exactly like the flares disappearing over behind the mountains.
So the history's mysteries makes it seem like it's all a conspiracy and a cover-up?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
it's really, it's awful.
Wow.
It's embarrassing. Another one of the mysteries is the silence. Well, again, the silence is not mysterious when they're flares. You don't expect to see that. And the silence of the first event was you didn't hear those planes because they were very high in the sky. Yeah. So there's no mystery about the silence. And again, that's sort of part of the lore. It's like, whoa, how good these earthbound terrestrial craft not make noise that people hear? Well, here's why. Because they're high, or in the case of the flares, they're flares. Flares don't make jet noises. Yeah. Sorry, bro. And then comes the confusion due to the conflation of these two separate events, and that has had a lasting impression on this. So what happened is this: the events in minds of many people, the events were merged into a single event. And what the UFO advocates have, I think, purposely done this. They've merged them into a single event. So when the explanation about the A-10 is aired and people say, well, here's what, part of this was the first thing were these planes, the people who saw the flares go, that's crazy. They were hovering and they were moving. Those weren't planes. Those can't have been planes. No shit, that wasn't planes, because what you're describing were flares, not planes. And vice versa. If you say, oh, they were flares, you say, well, no, I saw them moving across in a V-shaped formation. There's no way that could have been flares. Right. And this has been done relentlessly. Yeah. And I strongly, strongly, strongly believe that has been done purposefully. So, in fact, what is done to make the quote unquote official explanation sound ridiculous and nonsensical. Right. Like it's a typical government cover up, and it makes people it makes the government story look dumb. The media helps this a lot because I guess you'll see they'll be asking someone about, in one media account they're asking someone who saw the Warthogs, who saw Event 1, if it could have been flares, and this person said no, and that Dateline special. That was very influential. That was early on. I think it was not long after the event. It even showed people on Dateline remembering the earlier V-shaped UFO while they were showing pictures of the flares. So that's sleazy. Yeah. Dateline was basically talking to people who had seen the A-10, and they were showing the flares.
Yeah.
To make the official story sound ludicrous and impossible. Yeah. So there's still tons of it out there. You still see it on, like I said, I guess because it's the 25th anniversary, or actually it's 26th now, but earlier last year when the 25th anniversary, we had a slew of shows, and I think a slew of shows when History's Greatest Mysteries had its special, and also some documentary called UFO or something on Netflix had an episode on this as well.
How'd you miss it?
I don't know. I'm glad I did. And Lynn Cattell is on all of these shows. Yeah. It's just the media has done just butchered this story, and as you know, I've said this many times before. Joe, the people who claim paranormal things have everything their way in the media. Right. Period. Yeah. They just do. It's the opposite of what it may have been 20 or 30 or 50 years ago.
This was between 20 and 30 years ago. So
I know, but but like I said, even then it was pretty well. Okay, so 50 or 60 years ago. When was their last shame or like it was kind of, oh, I'm so embarrassed, but I think I saw a UFO. Yeah. That hasn't been true for decades. Yeah. It's the exact opposite way. Now, if you try to say calmly, sorry, those were flares. You're the dick. You're covering up. You're lying. And the people who want to, these people can say anything they want, and they're going to get a credulous audience, and that's not okay. So
no, we should go back to treating them like the crazies that they are.
Honestly, there needs to be consequences for saying stupid. Well, I don't want anything to be. If you think you saw something, hey, see something, say something. Absolutely. But so many people are just fraud. Lynn Cattell is a fraud. Yeah. She's selling bullshit to make money.
You don't think she really believes it?
I don't think she does.
I'll bet she does.
She looks a little crazy, so maybe she does.
Yeah.
But she knows what she's saying. It's still on her.
Yeah.
She knows the truth, and she refuses it and spreads the not truth. That's on her, whether she believes it or not.
Yeah. Well, if she believes it, then she's spreading the truth.
No, she's not spreading the truth. She's spreading lies.
I know that. But
even if she doesn't know they're lies, that doesn't make it okay. Like you said a minute ago, if you're not an expert and don't know what the fuck you're talking about, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Or at least just say, if you have a logical thing to say, or if you have something. Besides, she also says she saw it outside her living room window.
Well, of course.
So
yeah.
Sorry, sister. Also, by the way, I guess some people have said they saw, oh no, it couldn't have been behind the mountains because I saw them fall in front of the mountains. That's just not true. So there's a lot of misperception at the time as well. For instance, people started looking at the witness testimony, and the witnesses who lived like in the foothills and were higher up actually saw the lights disappear a little later than the people down in the Valley floor, which fits exactly with them falling behind those mountains, which we know they did because we know exactly where they fell, and so does the Air Force and the Maryland Air National Guard.
They needed smart people with real credentials to analyze this and go on the news and talk about it. I don't know what area of study these people would be, but
astronomers, military specialists, people like that.
Not military people.
What do you mean then?
Like not astronomers. Why astronomers?
Well, people who understand the sky, I guess, and people. I think military people understand aircraft and how aircraft might look and things like that, right?
Sure, but if we think it's a military cover-up, maybe an aeronautical engineer or somebody.
Well, you just need that guy Bob something who worked in Area 51 for years, and then the government expunged his real resume from the global public record to embarrass him.
I'm sure there are lots of professors or smart people with degrees.
Yeah, well, they usually ignore this stuff because it's like, oh, that was flares. I'm done.
No, I know, but they could lend their expertise to.
Sure. But I want to tell you an example of something that really illustrates how people who want to believe are going to believe no matter what you say to them. So this is a witness who swore he saw a triangle. This is the first event. He thought the A-10s were a triangle, a solid object, etc., just like a lot of folks did, in fairness to him. But he was in a position where he saw the lights, what he thought was an object, pass in front of the moon, right?
Okay.
And when these 5 lights, this solid triangle, passed in front of the moon, the solidity disappeared, and he could see 5 lights, and he saw like wavy lines trailing behind each of the 5 lights. What is that? Those are contrails.
Yeah.
So he saw the solid mass disappear, and he saw contrails. His interpretation of it is that, the alien pilot of the aircraft cloaked his aircraft and made it disappear and looked like at the exact time when it passed between him specifically and the moon. I mean, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing anyone can do for that person if he wants to think that happened. So suddenly, just to fuck with him at the exact right time for just him, because anybody standing somewhere else it wouldn't have been the same time it passed over the moon. made the craft disappear. Oh, and by the way, left the lights on. So I'm not sure why you're cloaking. This is the worst cloaking device ever. We can all see the lights still. That's I think a very good illustration.
Yeah.
So the official story is what I just explained, but there's still people who think that it's not true. There's people who think like, oh, it was a super secret military craft, like the B. We always talked about the B-2 bomber was seen for years before it was talked about and made public. Well, that's the point, though. All these secret things are eventually talked about, made public. If we had a mile-long cigar-shaped craft, we would know about it 26 years later.
Right.
Sorry. So clearly it's not any kind of military craft. Obviously, the major explanation for this is UFO. It was some kind of an alien craft or crafts. It would have to be crafts. It's funny how you kind of forget these would be two very, very different craft in the sky at the same time over Phoenix if this is really a UFO thing. But it has obvious appeal because it was weird to see. Yeah. And it really was. But again, the History of Grace Mystery Show had 100% of the people were true believers. They didn't have a single... I hate to use the word skeptic because I honestly, I think in this case, true believers are skeptics.
Yeah.
You know the truth. We presented the truth to you and you're skeptical about it. You're the skeptic. You're the one who's not open-minded. You're very close-minded if you think this was a UFO. You aren't willing to accept actual data and evidence. Honestly, like Lincoln Tell, who is vile. So she said, and this on the History of Grace Mystery, she said, says she watching the lights, what we now know are the flares, and that she saw one of the lights disappear because it went behind the mountains. And she said, but I quote, felt like it was still there. And she says she saw the lights and quote, felt like someone was watching me. And again, she also said, she's just an attention-seeking kind of a clown. And I would say this. I know I'm going to piss off a lot of UFO. I don't want to, but just. If you really want to explore the idea that there's UFOs, I think that's great. I do. I'm fascinated by it. I'd love for there to be UFOs. You should not be pissed off at me for being honest about it and looking at this rationally. You should be pissed off at people like Lincoln Tell and people like that who are lying to you or making things up. And why are they doing that? They're doing that to make money off you. For you go to the conferences and buy their books and shit like that. They're lying to you to make money off of you. They are scam artists. Don't be mad at me. Be mad at them and explore it. And that goes for almost every field of paranormal. Is that if I think it's great. Look at it with a truly open mind. And when it's not true, you have to be honest with yourself. When it is, when there's something still there, like for instance, I mentioned the TikTok. The Tic Tac episode. That's yet to be explained. That's to me. That's really interesting. And what we're going to talk about next week, the Muskegon Lights. Bear with me. You're going to hear me say that there might be something there. I don't know, but it is vastly less explicable and way more mysterious and way more compelling than the Phoenix Lights. The Phoenix Lights were A-10s and flares. We know that with dead certainty. You just are going to have to move on, and I wish you would ignore people like Lincoln Tell and say terrible things about her on social media. I'm kidding. Don't do that. Actually, do that.
No, don't do that.
Another one of the persons on the History's Greatest Mysteries I'll end with this, but there's a part where they talk about a guy who called in. So an anonymous person called into, you guessed it, the Coast to Coast radio show, the infamous radio show where no one can say anything that's not true, no matter how nonsensical what they're saying. And this person said, I was a corpsman for the Air Force, and I was at Luke Air Force Base. And when this happened in March, and this is years later they called in. I can't remember. They called in years later and said, we got reports. F-15s were scrambled. Essentially, there was a dogfight between the U.S. Air Force and alien craft from an interstellar traveling society. And hey, we won. Or at least we held our own, right? Because literally the stories this show veers into like, yes, there was this dogfight. There was this war. Wow. We won. And here's the thing. So, and they treat it like, okay, well, this person said that. So we have to, you skeptics have to explain that away. Like we should believe a single word this dipshit said. I mean, literally, it's like, well, we now have new information. Explain that new information. It's just ludicrous. So And I guess they end the show on the History's Greatest Mysteries talking about basically there's this dogfight and we won. And so knowing though they would need a cover story, the A-10s and the flares were instantly deployed to provide a cover story when they had to explain the dogfight the next day to this public who must have seen these things. It's insane level insanity.
But so the public didn't see the dogfight.
Nope.
The public only saw the cover-up.
Yes, they saw the cover-up. And by the way, this cover-up was instantaneously implemented. It would have had to been thought up and implemented as the dogfight is still going on for this to have happened.
Yeah.
It's that, and this is treated and it's presented like it's rational thought. And it's not. Yeah. So again, I know I pissed a lot of people off. But you have to
maybe not
just try to when you assess these folks, assess them with some logic, assess them with rationality. And I hate to say this, but don't believe what they say until you can verify it from a source more credible, because they lie a lot.
Yeah,
they really do. They embellish and they lie constantly, because it's one of those things we talked about many times, is that if something can be explained away, they think of something that is less explicable.
Right. Yeah.
And they'll always embellish and add to it to make it more and more difficult to explain away.
Yeah.
And that's what happened here. There's been some embellishment with this, but I could be completely wrong. And Lynn Cattell could have been visited by these UFOs just outside her window because she's so special and her smile is so charming.
Yeah, you never know. Maybe you cherry picked all the sources that you consider credible.
Be I did, but I didn't. No, I try to assess these things with, like I said, like a lot of the sort of proponent type articles are written with just factual errors all the time. They're riddled with errors. There's one in Esquire magazine. It was embarrassing.
Really?
Her name is Abigail something, the writer. She should be ashamed of herself. But it stated just nonsensical, illogical statements, and just to try. And again, it's still presented to this day as this, we don't know what happened. It's super mysterious, when it's absolutely nothing of the sort. We know exactly what happened. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Next week, though, I promise you, it's going to be a different, that's why I call these bookends. This is it's all bullshit lights story. Next week, we're going to find some lights in the sky that are vastly more mysterious.
Told them how it's going to end.
Oh, no, there's some good stuff next week. Trust me. It's an interesting story for sure.
Okay. I'll wait and see.
Okay.
Oh, well, thanks, Dean.
Anytime.
UFO episode number what?
Not UFO episode number what? What are you talking about?
How many UFOs have we done?
I like UFOs. You should do some. You'll never do a UFO episode, will you?
You can have your corner. I'll have
Whatever.
mine. Okay, well, hey, thanks everybody for listening.
See ya.